The next instrument A is transmission electron microscope. This is the structure of transmission electron microscope. Introduction about electron microscope. Electron microscopes are scientific instruments that use of that use a beam of energetic electrons to examine objects on a very fine scale and create an image of the object. It is capable of much higher magnification, that is 10,000 plus, and a greater resolving power than a light microscope, allowing it to see much smaller objects with finer detail. They are large, expensive piece of equipment generally standing along in a small specially designed room and requiring personnel to operate them. And types: transmission electron microscope and scanning electron microscope. First one, transmission electron microscope. Transmission electron microscope is the original form of electron microscope that uses the high voltage beam of electrons to create an image, and it is patterned exactly on the light microscope except for it uses a focused beam of electrons instead of light to see through the specimen. And it is developed by Max Knoll and Ernst Ruska, Germany in 1931 to observe finer details of internal structure of microscopic objects like bacteria and other cells. And the specimen to be examined is prepared as an extremely thin dry film or as an ultra thin section on a small screen and is introduced into the microscope at a point between the magnetic condenser and the magnetic objective. The point is comparable to the stage of a light microscope. An electron beam from an electron gun is transmitted through an ultra thin section of the microscopic object, and the image is magnified by the electromagnetic fields. And the magnified image may be viewed on a fluorescent screen through an airtight window or recorded on a photographic plate by an inbuilt camera. Modern variants have facility to record the photograph by digital camera. And mechanism of transmission electron microscope. There are four main components to a transmission electron microscope: an electron optical column, a vacuum system, the necessary electronics, a lens supplies for focusing and deflecting the beam, and the high voltage generator for the electron source and control software. Anode and cathode accelerates beam, and focusing occur by electrostatic and electromagnetic lenses. Beam strike the sample and passes through it. After emerging out, it carries information about sample and magnify it by object lens. Information can be analyzed by screen or film or CCD cameras on LCD or monitor. And advantages of transmission electron microscope. Transmission electron microscope offers the most powerful magnification, potentially over 1 million times or more. Transmission electron microscope provides information on element and compound structure, images and high quality and detail. And transmission electron microscope are able to yield information of surface features, shape, size and structure, and they are easy to operate with proper training. And next one is scanning electron microscope, and this is the structure of scanning electron microscope. Scanning electron microscope is a type of electron microscope that produces images of a sample by scanning it with a focused beam of electrons. It is used to observe the surface structure of microscopic objects. Like transmission electron microscope, a scanning electron microscope consists of an electron optical column, a vacuum system, electronics and software. And the specimen to be examined is exposed to a narrow electron beam from an electron gun which rapidly moves over or scans the surface of the specimen. Electrons interact with electrons in sample and convey information by release of a shower of secondary electrons and other types of radiations from the specimen surface and convey information in form of signals to detector. The intensity of these secondary electrons depend upon the shape and the chemical composition of the irradiated object. These electrons are collected by a detector which generates electronic signals. These signals are scanned in the manner of a television system to produce an image on a cathode ray tube, and the image is recorded by capturing it from the cathode ray tube. Modern variants have facility to record the photograph by digital camera and stored in computer memory. And the mechanism of scanning electron microscope. When high energy electrons strikes the surface, it loses energy by different mechanism like heat emission of low energy secondary electrons and high energy backscattered electrons. X-ray or light emerges from sample that carries information on it. And advantages of scanning electron microscope. It is basically used for biological samples and it can scan the processes occurring on surface and tells about topography and composition. Enable us to view without thinning, dehydrating, fixing the sample, and it can scan bulk samples up to 2 to 3 centimeter which cannot be examined by transmission electron microscope. It viewed obtained is in 3D, and the scanning electron microscope produce image of wet, gas and vacuum samples and biological samples. Thank you.